So as we continue on the doll industry in the 1800s, we start to have new developments taking place, both in the type of material that was being used to make the dolls, in the methodology of their bodies, in their costuming, and different things that the dolls could do. And that is an important thing to remember. I wanted to start with one which is not one of the earlier ones, but she's the only German lady that I have up here, and this is this girl on the right. Let me pull her a little closer so we can turn her. Now, she is German. Her head is made in Germany, and let's talk about a couple good features about her. She has beautiful cobalt blue eyes. This model was made by Simon & Halbig, and it could have been made with painted eyes or with glass eyes, which were more expensive. But now look at her hair. The color is a rare color. It's a sculpted light brown, and usually it will be either blonde or black, but Simon & Halbig liked this light brown, and they used it quite a bit. And they did a couple of extra features to make the doll notable. Instead of just being a shoulder head, one-piece head and shoulders, they made it a swivel head, so the head could be looking to the right or to the left in either direction. They pierced the ears so they could wear earrings. And notably, look at this. They sculpted a hole, a tiny little hole at the top of the head, lined it, and it was designed for insertion of a real hair ribbon. So an extra little feature. And then again, all of those wonderful curls just tumbling down the back. Now, here's what happened. She was made in Germany, but she was made for the French market. Now, there's absolute proof of this because she is presented as the poupée à Bonaventure, or the fortune-telling doll. And she has a skirt with 1, 2, 3, 4 tiers of folded papers, and every one of those papers contains a fortune written in French, handwritten in old ink, in old hand script in French, every single one of these hundreds of papers. She was a very luxury piece, and she was obviously designed for a very, very aristocratic party or some type of a gift, but every one of these has, and you can see it in the catalog. Let me pull one out and show you. I'm not going to really pull it out. I'm just going to open it up a little bit so you can see what the message looks like. This is like when the papers are pulled out and unfolded, there is a little message written inside that would tell your fortune. She has added wonderful little pieces of very, very notable jewelry of coral, and one of them having the zodiac sign on it. So it's a great piece. Now, next to her, we have, experimentally also, were dolls made of wax. In the English market, they developed these. Actually, from Italian immigrants into England, kind of developed that market because they had been making wax pieces in Italy for so long. Several families moved to Italy and began to develop the whole industry of making wax dolls. And I have two beautiful examples here. I'm going to show you this one first because I'm claiming her as English, and I'm going with this English designation, and if somebody wants to call and say, hey, I know more about this doll than you do, I welcome you to tell me because I would love to know. I'm designating her as English based on the way the wax is poured, the modeling of the face, very, very portrait type of face, very much the work that was being done in England at that time. Her complexion is absolutely flawless. It's just really gleaming. And she has a wonderful original wig and done this beautiful hairstyle with a curled hair down the front bodice. When she comes around again, I want you to look at her face once again because look at the profile, very aristocratic, strong lines, and then look at her again, a very, very serene expression. I think that's a magnificent doll. And then we have another one, which is indubitably English, so much absolutely the style of what they were doing. And what is extraordinary about this doll is her original condition. She is like out of the box from 150 years ago. Crisp blue costume, royal blue costume. And I'm going to turn her around so you can see her. Look at the hat when we get around to the back, and look at how that hat is woven. She has that wonderful pale rose complexion, very, very beautiful, in contrast beautifully with her cobalt blue eyes, which are exactly the shade of her costume. She has wonderful old boots, and when we come around, I'm going to lift up the boot a little bit for you to see. Several English companies worked on these, the most notable being Montanari and Perotti. And look at those wonderful early boots. Aren't they great? This is a beautiful doll. How could it possibly have been preserved so it's not just bright, but it's crisp, it's vibrant. It's a dream doll. It's a dream doll. You can look for years to find any dolls in this wonderful condition. Now, as the makers were experimenting with dolls, they started experimenting with, going into the French market, of experimenting with dolls made of porcelain or a bisque, either one. Bisque basically being porcelain, but not having the shiny finish, having a smoother finish. I have two early examples here I wanted to show you of dolls that were presented by Leontine Romer, which I think are really quite exceptional for various reasons. The particular one here is a very early model. She has the shoulder head version. The head does not swivel or move in any way. It will just continue to gaze at you. And she has absolutely beautiful painted eyes, very, very dreamy painted eyes, a wonderful expression, just a touch of pink tint to her complexion, so it's not like a washed out white, but it's very almost realistic looking. She has her original porcelain limbs and her costume. Wow. This is an extraordinary early costume, and it bears the maker's signature on the inside label from a famous couturier in Paris about the 1855 to 1860 period. Very, very famous and well documented in Timer's Encyclopedia of French Dolls. So definitely a wonderful doll with this beautiful soutache trim. White piqué with soutache trim, to me, that's the best of all fabrics. I'm going to show you a few more in a little while too. Now we come to another example of an early porcelain, and this one also by Romer, and I'll tell you what, we have her sitting in a chair, which, by the way, is one of the wonderful pieces of furniture coming up in our auction. As I told you, there are many, many pieces. But she's posed in a seating position because she was designed, unlike many other French fashion dolls of the period, that she could either sit or stand comfortably. And Romer designed a patent for this. And what she did, I don't know if I can get to them or not, I can't get to it through all of her clothes, but there are two little holes in the front of the torso with little grommets on them and strings coming out of there. And those strings were designed to come down and hook on to with little clasps, the little front of the legs, and that would hold her in the seated position so she wouldn't tumble over. Now, that seems to me like a lot of work for a child to do playing with it, so I suspect that's why so many are left intact, that the child just had the doll sit, and that was the end of it. But while we have her dress up, by the way, look at those legs. Oh, they're just incredible. She does have shoes, but we think this doll is better displayed with her wonderful porcelain bare feet. Now, let's look at something else. This is another patent that Romer did. Romer was an interesting person. She was very jealous of Adelaide Harrade, whose doll was considered the famous, almost the signature doll of Paris. So she kind of copied a lot of things she did. But she was also very innovative herself, and she introduced many, many patents or déposés for different features of a doll. One of them being, in this case, the flat cut neck, which pivots completely around, but it's not a socket that fits in to the shoulder plate like other dolls. So that was one of her designs, as well as the seated position, and then the porcelain hand. She again has beautiful eyes, and another absolutely fabulous early dress on this early wonderful Romer. So beautiful dolls were being made in bisque material as well. And we have an example here of a doll that we don't know who made the doll. This was what was happening in France at the time. The dolls were basically assembled for the most part. Many, many makers of them would purchase heads from company like Berrois, who would have a porcelain firm, and they would do heads on commission for people who then would purchase the bodies from someone else who would assemble them. Then they would get costumes from someone else or make costumes in their own little shop. So this is an example of a beautiful poupée of the period. Very, very wonderful, pale complexion, brilliant cobalt eyes, and a beautiful period costume, original wig, gorgeous doll. As the French market developed, you saw in the earlier group that many of the poupée dolls that I showed you, the French fashion dolls, looked more like children than they did ladies. They had really rounded, plump faces. And even though a couple of them had fashionable lady costumes, you also could look at some of them and say, oh, they look more like children. As the market went along, as we moved into the late 1860s and then into the 1870s, the French poupée became, voila, a lady, grown up and wearing ladies' costumes. And I have here 5 beautiful examples with different things to feature to you about each one. I want to start with our large girl sitting over here. And I'm showing her sitting because I want you to see the articulation of this doll, which is absolutely extraordinary. One of the things that the French developed was the idea of making wooden articulated bodies, and a lot of this developed from the mannequins that had been produced in Germany and France for several hundred years that were used by artists in their studios. And they did these wonderful carved wooden bodies, and the French doll makers all of a sudden decided, hey, why can't I make wooden doll bodies, get wooden doll bodies on the dolls, because they will be durable, they will be posable. I mean, look, there's so many wonderful poses on this. This doll has, well, you saw her shapely torso, which was designed to accommodate to the fashions of the period. And we're going into the late 1860s, into the 1870s. And then look, well, let me show you before I, well, okay, she can do this too. She can do her aerobics, but dowel jointing, swivel wrist, dowel jointing, dowel jointed knee, and then, because she was a luxury model, extra pivot jointing at the mid-thighs. So the legs could be put in so many different poses. This doll is so extraordinary, A, for the quality of this very, very luxury body, also the jointing at the upper arms as well, the swivel jointing, so the arms could be posed. Would you like some tea? See, so many wonderful pieces could be done here. Now, here's the rarity points of this doll. A, the wooden body itself, extremely, extremely rare. B, the extra luxury pivots on the wooden body. C, the grand size. Wow, they don't show up in the size. Undoubtedly, this one was made as an exhibition model, probably for the 1867 Paris International Exposition, to show the type of doll that could be offered. Always remarkable for its artistry. And then let's look at the face. All right, come on here, sweetheart. Stand up and show them your beautiful face. All right, and here's what I want you to notice. It's a swivel neck, but what else? She leans back, she leans forward, she tilts to one side, she tilts to the other side. She has the rare extra neck articulation that was deposed by Alexandre de Horse and was designed to give the poupée a more realistic look. And he did it in this direct competition with the Hooray doll that he said was just frozen. It could only look straight ahead. So he wanted his doll to be, nod your head, ma'am. Tilt your head to the side in a coquettish way. And he came up with this method of doing it, and it is an extraordinary piece. But extra important was how expensive it was for the doll maker to create this extra movement in the doll head. So also always a sign of a luxury doll when you find the de Horse neck articulation. And by the way, that's always one of the questions you have to decide when you have a wonderful doll like that with that fabulous body. How do you display it? Do you display it with the costume, or do you display it naked? One of the first early collections I ever handled for a woman in Connecticut, when we walked into her home, this was, I don't know, 30 years ago, and she had her doll room, and she collected French fashions, and all of her dolls were displayed nude. And I kind of did a double take, and her husband, she had passed on, and her husband said, no, she was so taken with the study of the different type of doll bodies that were made that that's what she wanted to feature on, and it was an incredible collection. Okay, here we have our cover doll, in all ways remarkable, and let me show her to you in all her great ways. She has, what you're not seeing below her gown, she has her original label from the Simone boutique of Paris, considered one of the finest luxury boutiques of Paris for dolls and playthings. They didn't handle anything ordinary. Everything they had was deluxe. And look at this lady. She is magnificent with her original jewelry. Her body is so firm and so strong, and that's what you dream to find when you find the kid-bodied poupées. When they still have held all of the stuffing in them and the stitching is fine, that's just an incredible work. And here she is, and look at this gown. Look at this gown. Absolutely extraordinary. Layers of lace, layers of flounces, draping, original ribbons on them. Extraordinary. Sharing the cover of In All Ways Remarkable catalog is another very, I would say, her costume is a little more dainty. And she really has almost a shy look on her face, like she's almost looking over at her older sister in an envious sort of way. Do you all have that? Do you look at your dolls? Do you make stories up about them? You know, as kids, you did, and I think as grown-ups we look at dolls and we kind of envision them in scenes and in settings as well. So, hey, that's okay. We can do that if we want. This girl is quite rare because she has, which you're not really seeing here, she has her original Guesclin body. And this was the body that was patented by Panier and made by Guesclin, and it was a metal armature body with padded stockinette, bisque hands, and bisque lower legs, which we really can't see because she has her shoes and socks on, but she has her bisque lower legs, and it was designed, again, so the doll could have a lot of articulation. Look, she can lean back, she can wave her arm, she can put this arm up. She has lots of posing that kid-body dolls could not have, so this was a really designed feature. And wearing her original costume, which does have a bit of frailty on that early muslin, but is, wow, fabulous. Original jewelry, wig, hair bows, everything about her is just really super. All right, your two sisters talk over there. And then we have two other wonderful dolls. And again, when I talk to you about white piqué fabric, I love white piqué. Whether it's vertically ribbed, horizontally ribbed, sometimes it even has a little waffle weave pattern. It doesn't matter. It just makes a great costume. And here we have two wonderful early poupées in their original costumes. This girl with bisque hands to above the elbows, which is beautiful for wearing the short-sleeved costumes. Her costume is totally original. Cobalt blue eyes. Even has a little cape. Stand up. Even has a little cape that matches her gown. And look at the top of her hat, original hat. It's just beautiful. And early shoes. Beautiful early little leather slippers. And then her very petite sister, which is so great to find the early tiny fashions like that, has this multi-layered white piqué gown with the overskirt on it, the box pleats in the back, the tiers of ruffles, and early shoes, and jewelry, including the watch and the earrings. She has this wonderful hat, and underneath the hat she has a wonderful original wig with the interwoven ribbons. So a beautiful little selection for a French poupée.